Yes guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video today, I'm going to be covering how you can manage travel while staying in shape. If you're new to the channel, my name's Joe. I own an online coaching company called Athletic Aesthetic. We work with clients all over the world, generally men between the age of 30 to 45. And travel, whether that is for holidays or work, is something that comes up almost every single day in check-ins when we're coaching our clients one-to-one. Now, in this video, I'm generally going to be referring to work travel. We work with a lot of men in the US who travel internationally, but mostly domestically. I've got guys who are traveling every single week, people who are traveling multiple times a month. And the reality is, if you're looking to get in shape and most importantly, stay in shape, and you are traveling, let's say, once a month or more, that's a key feature in your life, and you're gonna need to learn how to manage it if you want to get the best results. It is more challenging, which I'll go on to in a second. I'm not gonna stand here and tell you that managing travel and staying in shape is the same and as easy as someone who works a normal 9 to 5 and doesn't travel. There's things that you're gonna have to adapt. So I wanted to actually start with mindset. So what you need to do is get rid of the all or nothing mindset. And this isn't even just related to travel. This is something that you're gonna have to accept if you're wanting to get in shape. Not every day is gonna be perfect, and every week is definitely not gonna be perfect. But for example, if you have 1 per night of sleep when you're traveling, you can't afford to let that throw you off everything else. It's gonna be more challenging from a sleep standpoint. You're not gonna have as much energy when you train. You might not have access to as good quality nutrition as you normally do. So get rid of the all or nothing mindset. Understand that it's gonna be a little bit more difficult, but you can still make progress, because if you zoom out, the most important thing is, are you making progress month on month, quarter on quarter? It's not about necessarily every single week. Let's say you traveled 1 week out of 4, which is a lot. Even if you just maintained on that 1 week of travel, but you progressed on those 3 other weeks, you are making progress in the long run. So get rid of the all or nothing mindset. Understand it's gonna be more difficult, but if it is important to you to be in shape, then you'll be able to work around it. Okay, so the first thing that usually, well, almost always is going to be disrupted with travel is going to be sleep. And obviously the extent of that is going to depend on whether it's international or whether you're only traveling to a slightly different time zone. But generally, there's almost always going to be less sleep. So in an ideal world, let's say you are at home in your normal, controllable environment, we want to be aiming for a consistent sleep and wake cycle with minimal variability. And what I mean by that is, try and go to bed between 10:30 and 11 every single night, let's say, or maybe 10 and 10:30, giving yourself half an hour leeway. And then same in the morning, get up between 5:30 and 6 or 6:30. That's what I try and do. I don't want to be one night going to bed at 9, one night going to bed at 12, because my sleep cycle is going to be all over the place. My body's not going to know what's going on. So when you are traveling, what I was going to say was, though, you just need to focus on total duration, the total amount of sleep that you're getting throughout the week. And that will obviously reduce the symptoms of tiredness that you're experiencing. It will, when you're sleep deprived, motivation to train and work hard is going to be less as well. So we need to basically just be avoiding that. And the obvious ways that you can do that, if you are struggling to get a lot of sleep on the actual night, let's say you only got 5.5, maybe 6 hours of sleep, you could take a nap, 30 to 60 minutes if you've got time, but you just want to make sure that you're not doing that too close to your evening schedule, because then obviously it's going to prevent you from being able to fall asleep. But then on weekends as well, and I'm a big fan of these two things. So even if I'm not traveling, as I said in the last video, sometimes I'll work late, sometimes I have to get up early. If I've got an hour or so in the afternoon, I'll have a nap there and just bump up the overall duration. Similarly on the weekends as well, I don't tend to work on Saturdays, and I start work a little bit later on Sunday, so I can afford to have a little bit of a lie-in, maybe an extra half an hour, even an hour. But as I said before, don't allow too much variability, but focus on the duration. That is the most important thing when you are traveling, because all the other variables are going to be disrupted anyway. You're not going to have your usual maybe dark bedroom that you do at home. The temperature might not be the same. But I think the main thing is just about understanding, again, have a bigger picture mindset to it. A few bad days of sleep is not going to kill you. I think a lot of people in this whole kind of like optimal world at the moment, they get really scared. Oh my God, I got 15 minutes less sleep today. You can still train hard. If you are massively sleep deprived, let's say you went from 7 hours down to 3, I would recommend opting for a lower intensity training session. So maybe subbing a heavy strength session for a light intensity cardio session, Or if, you know, maybe you've got 1 or 2 hours less, you could just lift a little bit lighter in the gym. You know, it's not going to kill you, but you can still adapt things. Something that you should try and organize though, if you can, if you're choosing hotels or Airbnbs, just make sure that it's got a good quality aircon so you can get the temperature, you know, between 16 and 20 degrees for good sleep quality there. But we'll touch on training again in the next section too. Next thing is training. Now, if you want to get in shape and stay in shape, then training should be an absolute non-negotiable. So obviously when you're traveling, we still want to train. Now, it obviously depends where you're traveling to. A lot of the people that I work with, the companies that they work for will put them up in hotels. So usually the difference between their normal commercial gym versus a hotel, we have a lot of guys in the US that train in Equinox, which is a really amazing facility. But then when they're going away, they're in these hotel gyms where usually there's going to be a lack of weight. So generally the dumbbells might only go up to 45, 50 pounds. There's usually a couple of incline benches that you can adjust. There's usually a cable stack and there's cardio equipment. So with the training, some techniques that I would utilize just to change things. If you have a lack of weight, I would increase the reps and I would also increase the tempo. But what I mean by increasing it is, let's say you were doing a dumbbell press, usually 2 seconds down. Can we slow that down to 1, 2, 3, 4? So manipulate the reps, manipulate the tempo, go all the way up to 12 to 15 reps if you need to. Bring the tempo down to 3 or 4 seconds if you need to there. Again, it's not going to be absolutely perfect and it might not fit your program perfectly, but again, you're still going to get a good quality session. It means that you can just change the sessions a little bit and still follow the program that you're on. Reorganizing the training. So what I mean by that is, I find that most of the guys that we work with that travel, they don't train more than 5 times a week. I think if you're training 6 or 7 times a week and you're also traveling for work, it's going to be very difficult for you to get all the training in. So if you're training, let's say 3 to 4, maybe 5 times a week, that obviously gives you some flexibility to be able to move sessions. So for example, like if we flew from seeing family in the UK back to Dubai, with taxis, time in the airport on the flight, that's going to probably be a 13 to 14 hour duration of travel. So what I usually do then is just move a training session. So I would actually just have that travel day, a non-training day, and then move my session along throughout the week. If you had a little bit of free time and you did want to train, you could do what I mentioned in the last clip, where you bring down or you opt for less intense training. So if you had a heavy leg session and you've been on a plane and you're feeling a little bit stiff and you're tired, let's sub that for some zone 2 work on the bike or just a light run or something like that. So you still want to make sure that you're getting all of your training done, but you can move it around throughout the week to suit your schedule. But what you've also got to take into account is a lot of the guys that I work with when they're traveling, they're going to meet clients, they're going for dinners, there's a few drinks involved. And usually when those things happen, you can end up missing sessions. So ideally reorganize, move things around, but the most important thing is just getting it done. Now, if you are doing, let's say, your strength training and you have been impacted by the sleep side of things that we mentioned before, you can adapt the intensity and the volume of training. So the intensity, let's say dumbbell press, again, if we use that as an example, if I'm using the 40 kg dumbbells for sets of 6 to 8 when I'm fresh and I'm not traveling, I would probably reduce the intensity there. So I'd reduce the weights down to maybe, let's say 34 in the same rep range. So it's still a good workout. I'm still training the same muscle groups, but I'm reducing the intensity because I'm bringing the weight down. I'm still staying in the same rep range. You can also reduce the volume as well. So if you were short on time when you're traveling, if you've got functions to go to or something like that, instead of doing 3 working sets on your bicep curls at the end of the session, can we just bring that down to 2 sets instead? And that's going to save you a little bit of time. And again, just reducing the volume, you're not going to lose progress, you're not going to lose results. It's going to be enough to allow you to maintain, because again, going back to what I was saying before about the all or nothing mindset, I find that some people think that if they can't do absolutely every single working set and rep in the workout in the program, then they should just skip the whole session. But that's not the way to do things. You know, me and my partner were in Europe for 10 weeks over the last few months, and we were moving a lot. We were in different Airbnbs and different gyms. Not all the training was perfect, but I got all of the sessions done and I adapted things there. So that's how to adapt training, reorganize it. The most important thing is getting it done. Adapt the intensity and the volume if you need to. So reduce the weight to reduce the intensity, and reduce the volume if it's short on time. And lastly, we're going to talk about nutrition. I would say this is the part that most people get most stressed and most overwhelmed about. And some people seem to think as soon as they go to a different country or they go through an airport that their MyFitnessPal doesn't work and they just can't track anything. But I'm here to tell you that you can, because some of the best clients that I've worked with, the guys that have got the best transformations, the best results, they travel a lot, so you can definitely do it. So this is why I've written here, macros, not meal plans. What I mean by that is, this is why generally for 95% of the people that we work with, even though we've got a nutritionist on board our team, we generally opt for the macro tracking, calorie and macro approach as opposed to meal plans. Because I was actually having a conversation with one of my clients last night on a call who travels at least once a month for work. And he was saying, well, why can I not follow a strict meal plan? I said, you can follow a meal plan if you want to, but what happens when you go away and you travel? You know, you could have a chef in your home, you could be prepping all of your meals, but as soon as you go through an airport and you go to different restaurants, you've not got access to the meal plan and the meal prep there. So we like the calorie and macro tracking approach, but obviously within that, we want our clients to consume good quality whole foods 90% of the time. But what I mean by the macro and calorie tracking approach is you can essentially build your own meal plan. I would recommend sticking to similar meals each day, but you look at everything from a numbers point of view. So I could have, 2 meals and some snacks that I prepared at home myself. I track my macros, and then me and Liv go out for dinner. I can still track my macros and track the calories in that meal because I know how to do that. So it means that you can still stick to your macros and achieve your results whilst also eating out. And again, that meal plan, more rigid, wouldn't really allow you to do that. And I also find usually when people follow meal plans and they start eating out, they just go completely overboard because again, they go back to that all or nothing mindset. So this is a good way to be able to eat out, have flexibility, but still achieve your goals. But what you've got to bear in mind, usually when people have meals out, it's not always the case. They're generally going to be higher calorie meals. They're going to usually have a moderate amount of protein. There's going to be a high amount of carbohydrates and usually a high amount of fats. So if we have clients that are eating out, we almost always tell them to bank calories. So let's say we had a male consuming 2,500 calories a day and they were going out for a steak and some fries and a starter in the evening. Realistically, that's probably going to be between 800 to 1,100 calories. And we've also got to bear in mind that when you have meals out, these restaurants are going to cook in butter, they're going to cook in lots of oil, they're going to put sauces on that we don't really know about. So I'm a big fan of banking calories and almost overestimating the amount of calories that I'm banking as well, or clients are, so that they don't overspill. So if you are eating out, you absolutely can track, but make sure to bank calories. And this is something that we work on with the clients in the program is, if we've got someone new that comes on board and they're eating out in the first couple of weeks, we say, look, send us a photo of what you had, like literally take a photo at the meal, send us that across the next day and show us how you actually track that in MyFitnessPal so we can start to educate them on how they can actually track when they're on the go. And I always say to people, you should pretty much be able to go to any restaurant in your city and track to a close accuracy as to what you've consumed. And again, going back to mindset, you've got to understand that if you are used to preparing your own meals, getting meal prep, tracking and cooking everything yourself, you're never going to be as accurate when you do eat out, but that's okay. If you had 2 meals out a week and you were 10% inaccurate in those meals, you're still going to be very, very close in terms of degree of accuracy throughout the entire week. So don't overthink it. If you do eat out, track as closely as you can. ChatGPT and other AI platforms are amazing for estimating calories of meals. Now you can literally upload photos and it'll estimate the amount of calories and the macros in that meal. Alcohol is a common feature generally when you travel, because again, the people that we work with are usually traveling for work, they're meeting clients, they're going to functions and things like that. Alcohol, it has to be tracked as well. You have to track the calories, otherwise you're going to find that you massively overconsume. But our general advice of alcohol is just try and be selective with how often you drink and just understand the negative drawbacks of drinking. It's going to reduce your sleep quality, therefore your recovery. It's going to reduce your motivation to train. It's going to decrease your natural testosterone if you're drinking a lot, which is key for building muscle, maintaining muscle, and dropping body fat too. So nutrition, usually people get very, very overwhelmed, but you can still track. Even if it's not 100% accurate, you should be making your best effort to do that. If there's a couple of meals that aren't tracked every month, that's not going to have too much impact in the grand scheme of things. But overall, we should be tracking when we're on the go. And again, I would say that is probably the part that people find the hardest when they are traveling. But again, try not to have that all or nothing mindset. You can do it, you can put your best foot forward. So I hope this video has been useful. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to do so.